Clickers not gonna work unless we want to.
I'll just tell Fern.
This sounds like technology.
I'm used to not having my computer. So, hi, my name's Fern, or Chris Ferner, but there are many, many Chris's in the world, so I've been Fern since high school. And I was asked to talk about some of the mobile tools that are being heavily used in fire right now. And then I'm also going to kind of talk about some additional topics very briefly, because it's a short amount of time, but kind of to give you an idea of what's out there, what we can do with some of the data, and some resources for where you might go to learn a little bit more. Next. So first of all, who am I? I work for the ESRI Disaster Response Program, and that's a program within ESRI. ESRI makes the software, the ArcMap software, our GIS collector, Survey 123, that I'll be talking about. And the disaster response program is one where if an agency or community has an incident, it exceeds their software span of control, then they can reach out for support. If they need technical support, if something breaks, if they need additional software. We had issues with the snowstorm this spring where as a license server went down and some folks just needed a software license. And so they can reach out, get kind of some assistance, and then occasionally it'll be on-site support as well. And for fires, that's me, for the most part. Sometimes it's a couple other folks, but we do very limited on-site support. It's a lot easier for me to support multiple incidents from home than it is for me to go to one incident and not help anyone else. So, yeah, next. So really the focus that I was asked to kind of give today was on mobile applications. So how many of you, I'm going to ask the question and we're going to do hands up. Hi, how many of you do not own a smartphone? Usually you're proud about it. I just got rid of my flip phone about 1.5 years ago. And then how many of you do not have an agency provided smartphone or iPad? So you only use your personal. So that's a consideration. When you're going on a fire, what resources are on your resource order? And are you authorized to use a personal device for data collection? That usually, it's different in every agency. The BLM came out with a statement that says that it's essentially okay, approved, depending on the situation. Just know that this data is being sent somewhere else, so that's up to your supervisor. The bigger issue sometimes is data, and who's paying for the data on the device. Is it you, is it an agency, and do you have approval to use data for mapping? So you may need to just use Wi-Fi. Can you do that? Yes. Can you do that when you're in the woods? No. But you can take these offline. And so they operate offline, and then you can synchronize your data back. Now the big piece of importance around these two apps are that they feed data directly back to your GIS. So you get one GIS person after another. So your GIS specialist receives that data, can immediately provide it to folks at Incident Command Post, who then can make decisions off of it, help get it to stakeholders, process the data, any additional analysis that needs to be run. And so typically on a fire, as a GISS, we get data 12 to 18 hours after it's been collected. It's not that the fire stopped burning in those 12 to 18 hours. It can still be very active. But somebody collects data, then they're still on the line all day. They come back, we're not their first stop. They go restock their engine, go to the mess tent, usually remember to bring their data or their GPS by around 10 at night. If we're still processing those files, we'll get it on the map, and everyone will see it at 5 a.m. at briefing, or 6 a.m. So how useful is that information? Not as useful as maybe it was if the fire was really active 12 to 18 hours earlier. So we're trying to reduce that lag time between when the data is collected and when you, as a responder or decision maker, get to see that and use it. The app on the left, go back one. Sorry. The app on the left is, wrong way. There we go. Is Collector. How many of you have heard of or used Collector? A fair number have heard of it, yeah. Survey 123. A few less. So Collector's the one on the left, it's map-centric. You can collect, it's designed for data collection, points, lines, and polygons. You can edit existing points, lines, and polygons, attach photos, and do measurements. Then on the right is survey. It's form-based, so it looks like a form, looks like you're filling out that paper form. It is points only. And it's new point creation. So what kinds of things are new point creation? Damage assessments, weather, accountable property, pumps, smoke observations, structure triage. There's a whole slew of them from the biological and bear team side as well. All right, now so Collector, I'm going to go through kind of the apps first. Collector has the map, and at the top, this is an iOS device. So for those of you who are Android, it'll look a little bit different. Mostly the buttons are at the bottom instead of at the top, and you have those menu options at the bottom as well. So not a whole lot of options. You have your maps, you can collect data, switch out your base maps from imagery to topo, and do some measurements. And then, next slide. When you click plus, there is a template set up for Wildfire. When you click plus, this is the incident related, or this is actually suppression repair on the screen, but you get an option. What do you want to collect? That's the first question you're asked. Do you want to collect a point, a line, or a polygon? Do you want to collect an ICP? Hopefully that already exists in the data. Drop point, proposed drop point, versus maybe proposed water source, and then, or a line, proposed dozer line, or actual dozer line. And then, once you select what type of data, you're asked to fill out some information about it. Such as, what's your name as the data collector? Do you have any comments about this? Why is it important to fill that out right away? Because you're not going to do it later. And so fill it out then, you don't have to do it later, and then we don't have to come find you later. And we'll use your data. Because you don't want to spend your time collecting information and then have it not be quality enough that it's useful to the folks back at ICP or your command center. And then once you collect that point, you can switch to the map if you want, but you click submit. And if you are working offline, it saves it to your phone. If you're working online in an urban area where you have cell or Wi-Fi, then it will automatically send that data to the cloud, which goes to a GIS person or somebody kind of managing the map in the background. Now, working offline stores all your data on the phone. You'll need to remember at the end of the day to come back in and synchronize that data so that it gets sent. A lot of field observers, FOBs are using this. Almost all of the Northern Rockies teams are very well versed in Collector and managing it for offline environments. So I know if some of you are on Northern Rockies teams, you're getting a little bit ahead of the game because they were the beta testers in the fire community. All right, next. Lines are a little bit different because you have to start a line and stop a line. You don't just drop one point, you're dropping a lot of points. So the only difference is that you select what kind of line you're created, you go to fill out those fields. Again, fill them out now, don't wait. And then you say start data collection. So you actually create kind of what you're gonna collect, and then you start that data collection, and then you have to end it when you're done with your line collection. It's okay to collect multiple lines and give them to a GIS specialist. They're happy merging those back together. So where does it all go? In this case, the site that I use the most is the National Interagency Fire Center ArcGIS Online organization, or we say the NIFC org for short. So this is available for free to anyone working on a wildland fire or working in fuels mitigation management, anything related to fire, wildland fire. So you don't have to be from any specific agency, you can be private. If you're going out and doing some field work or working on fire and you need to use ArcGIS Online, you can get access to the NIFC org. I'm going to send Inga and Amanda, in fact they're waving at me, the link on how you sign up and get an account. Now it's helpful to have the GIS person involved so that they can help process and get the data and use it for something. But to start training, you can go ahead and sign up for accounts. I do have a spreadsheet of some temporary accounts. I think I have 20 left for this. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave those at the table with Amanda and Inga, if that's okay with you. So it goes into this website, and then we'll make maps and products, and we're going to look at some of those live. But a lot of times we don't just want what's been collected in the field, we also want to add other data. And so where do we get other data from? Well, typically things that are important to us are winds, smoke forecast, precipitation, boundaries, who owns the land, what kind of actions are we allowed to take on that piece of property. And there's also the Highfeld open data has a lot of the boundary information, where the nearest hospitals, airports, values at risk. We could pull in, I think, did you mention the EGP yesterday? Yeah, so a lot of the data that's in the EGP has been loaded into the NIFC ArcGIS Online organization as well. So those two work together. So GISSs on Type 2, Type 1 teams this year are learning how to move data back and forth so it's seamless between those two systems. Because the EGP is that presentation display kind of originally, and now if you want to do your field data collection, you're using Collector, and some kind of your map products for your ICP are often done in ArcMap or ArcPro. So it all is working together and tying back to the same data source. So once we have all these pieces of data, we can start making maps. This is just a static screenshot of one of these swipe maps. There's a lot of imagery that gets collected right after fires. If you have a cloud smoke-free day, then you can get some image with where the burn was, even possibly see the retardant lines. So this can be valuable for internal. In this case, this was only used internal to help find structures that had been destroyed. Because the roads were such a mess in this area, it was difficult. So we had to use this image, swipe back and forth and say, look, this looks like it's a possible structure. Let's go look and check it out, see if we can't find a road to that place. And then once everything's been announced through the sheriff's office, they did eventually release this publicly. But that's done only under the approval of the IC and the PIOs. All right, so we're gonna switch to survey 123, which does not look this beautiful. But I have some QR codes, and I actually have them on paper, and I can pass them around or give them to Amanda and Inga. I only have a couple copies of it, but surveys, and I guess now I'm going to do more blog stuff. I don't know how to do this. Like, we'll see. Maybe I can talk loud enough. Go mobile. Go mobile with our loud voices. All right, does that work? Yeah? So I'll hand around a couple of QR codes for Survey 123 and would love for you all to try them out. They're some of the ones I mentioned before: fire behavior, weather observations, structure triage. They're testing surveys, so enter as much information as you want. During trainings and workshops, we usually go out in a parking lot and people assess the damage to all the vehicles, and you can usually tell who's the most popular person because their vehicle gets destroyed a lot as a destroyed structure. So this is collector. I'm standing right in the way of a few folks, but this is collector. When you first sign in and open it, you'll see whatever maps you have access to. I'm signed in as one of the training accounts that we set up for this week, so I only have one map. It's an example of the national standard for GIS wildfire mapping. I can tap on that and zoom in, and some folks have been editing and adding some data this week. Walking around, adding a few lines. I can tap on one, aerial retardant, and show the details. I can edit it if I want, or delete as well. And a lot of it's just tapping on the screen to explore the different buttons and see what it does. Then, Survey 123. When you open Survey 123, and these are separate apps that you can find in your app stores. For those of you who do not have your own device or don't have a device at all, Smart Source, that was in the back corner, they provide iPads that have these apps on them during fire season. So you can order those through the ordering system, which is really nice because, one, you don't have to maintain your own equipment. It shows up with the apps and it has enough memory. Accountable property. So if I open accountable property, there we go, and I say pump, then one of the options is a barcode. So I can click on barcode, scan the serial number, the barcode on the pump, not have to type in the serial number. Human errors abound with pump tracking. And as a GISS, I can't tell you the number of times at the end of an incident that I would get a spreadsheet or a piece of paper, which is even less helpful, listing the pumps in the last known lat long where they were. And can we help find them? It's a little late for that at the end of the incident. So in this case, you may be recording the same pump multiple times, but it becomes a lot easier to filter data and identify by date and time. When was the last time this pump was recorded and where was it recorded? Maybe you don't have the disappearing pump problems that exist out in the West, but yeah, they disappear a lot. All right. So a couple, just to kind of go through a couple examples. There's the homepage of the NIFC org. So all this data gets collected. When you do, you want to look at it. You want to look at it. This is from one of the CAL FIRE. This is the Sonoma fire this summer. Doing all the damage assessments on the tubs. And this is called an operations dashboard. The numbers on the left and the right match the 209. So their GIS specialist set this up, gave it to the SIT unit and plans, and that way they didn't have to come ask, what are the numbers every day? When they did their 209, they open up the dashboard, they write down the current numbers, and they were done with that piece of their paperwork. From Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, this is the Severe County Structure Status Map. Once you do your internal data collection, this was actually the initial damage assessment. This was the third time it was done, and it was still in that first week, but the first time it was done on paper. And since there were no addresses or street signs left, the state employees who came in, who were brought in to do that, didn't know where they were. So they did the best they could, but they would write down bear statue at the end of the driveway. For those of us trying to map that, that wasn't very helpful. So we actually ended up driving every road ourselves with collector and dropping points and had it done in less than a day. And it was a long day, and they might have been driving fast. But there was nobody else on the road. So. Once we had that data and ran the numbers, shared it publicly. Why? What's the value? This is the piece that gets missed so often because we are heads down working on the fire, doing operations, working on what our responsibilities are. But that information has a huge value to get out to help start to let people start processing and start relaxing if it doesn't impact them. For those people who it does impact, it's better to know than not. I'll zip through these because I'm over. Right? Am I over? Okay, I'm over. I'm gonna zip through a few more. But other data, it's public information, but also good to see the progression of the fire. Photos. This has a huge value for external and internal. Picture tells 1,000 or more words. So when you take a picture, you can attach it in collector or survey 123, export those in report formats to PDFs. I did want to show one of my favorite photo taking apps where you can take a picture, it takes your GPS location, direction you're facing, what angle you're standing, and prints all of it on the photo. So you don't have to search for it. It's called Theodolite. It used to be free. I think I looked it up yesterday and it was like $5 or $6.
What's it called?
Theodolite. It's an easy to remember name. But that's been around for quite a while, and they were using it on prescribed fires out in California last year. And so they take their picture, attach it to the point, and they've got a whole lot of information all wrapped up in one. And then the only other thing that, there's of course a lot more I'd love to show, but in terms of training and how you learn more, if you have or are a GIS specialist, then there is a new site as of January 1st for GIS specialists to use. And the S341 class has been completely rewritten and is being taught 5 times this year, which is more than usual. And so all of those materials are available through FireNet, Google site, online. So I will send that link to Amanda and Inga as well. And it also has links for all of the ArcGIS online training. So how to use Collector as a GIS person or as a support person in your office. How do you set up a map for using Collector? How do you create a dashboard? How do you create a survey? So all of those things are in there. Sometimes they're a little outdated. We're trying to keep that up to date. It's challenging. There's a lot of change and it changes quickly. So I guess, are there any questions? Oh, yeah. And this is where you all are from.
On survey 123, where does the data get? Do you also send that to wherever your GIS server is?
Yeah, so on survey 123, the question was where does the data go? And the data goes into a data service that can live in your ArcGIS online org, and you can export that as a CSV, as a PDF report, as a shapefile or file geodatabase.
Do you need a license?
If you're working on a fire, you can use NIFC, because
The big issue was those of us who do type 1, type 2 fires, we show up after somebody's been there for 14 days and they're using a totally different system. And so that was pretty painful for transitions from a GIS perspective. And we would spend days on each end dealing with it. And so they said, we're just providing this for everybody working in fire so that it eases that transition of data.
Thanks, Fern, that was great. And I know I saw some more hands up, and that's awesome.